Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of the Arsenal Transfer Show, our daily 8 a.m. UK time show in which we give you all of the latest updates regarding Arsenal's latest transfer endeavours, be it incomings, be it outgoings, be it whatever. We are going to cover it and we're going to get your thoughts as well in the chat box throughout. Obviously, you're joining me the morning after the night before, as it may be described to some, in which I sat here and did a show yesterday of a few people that jumped on from the chat box. It was great to get some new ideas and thoughts on as well about, obviously, the takeover bid. So if you want to watch an emotional and an angry Tom, then you can check out yesterday's video. I did have to, again, for the second day in a row now, leave a comment, a pinned comment, basically just having to clarify things that were taken the wrong way for whatever reason. So you make sure you read the comment before you watch the video. It's frustrating, but it's, it's the nature of the job. It is what it is. So yeah, we're not talking about that anyway today. We're talking about transfers, which I'm sure that you're probably wanting an escape from all of the stuff from yesterday anyway. So we're going to crack straight on with things and go into our first story, which revolves around Joe Willock. Of course, we do like to start with our current players before we go into the players that we are looking to sign. And this is obviously, I have to give a shout out to Lee Judges, our friend of our show, who of course is part of the Arsenal Lounge, which interviewed Fabrizio Romano, where this information is, the majority of it comes from. And the interesting point about Joe Willock's price is what was talked about, and specifically a figure in the region of 25 to 30 million pounds for Joe Willock, which, I mean, if Arsenal can get that amount of money for this guy, a player that if you'd have asked me how much is this guy worth at the start of the season, I would have said max about 15 mil if you're lucky, especially considering the situation the world's in right now financially. So if that was anywhere near getting 25 to 30 mil, absolutely unbelievable it would be for Arsenal to get that amount of money. But there's still quite a lot of people that would want to keep Joe Willock at the club based upon, obviously, the things that he's done at Newcastle since going on loan to the Northeast, and for good reason as well, of course. You can't judge them for wanting to keep him. He's done very well since going there. He scored goals for midfield, which is something that Arsenal have lacked a hell of a lot this season as well. So let me know your thoughts about Joe Willock in the chat box, what you would do with him if you got offered a bid in the region of 25 to 30 million pounds. Would you sell, or would you be stubborn and keep him and want him to succeed at the club? Good morning to everyone in the chat box. Good to have you, all of you, here this morning. Loads of you are tuning in and making it your regular thing, which is great, every single morning. Fantastic to see so many of you making this just a regularity. Fantastic stuff. Armat says, I would keep Willock. Amir says that he wants to absolutely sell Joe Willock if we were to get that amount of money for him. So already we're starting to see people's views splitting into two. Stephen says, morning from Kenya. Morning, Stephen. It says 20 million would be okay. Rohan says sell. Isaac says 5 p.m. in Australia. Wow, that must be nice for a decent ice just before dinner. That's dinner time show for you guys. Marley says Willock is a keeper. I mean, we don't know if he's going to stay with the club, if he values it in that sense. Obviously, it's not about value, but of course, if you're a kid that's grown up at Arsenal, supported Arsenal, you'd want it to be your ambition to try and pay for Arsenal, surely. But maybe the temptation of playing week in, week out somewhere else that's still a very good club in Newcastle would overtake that feeling. Matt Thornton says, keep unless it's a decent offer like that. Avanash says that he wants to go for 30 million for Willock before he thinks about selling. Jashar says, I think it would be a big mistake to sell Joe Willock. Goal-scoring midfielders are priceless. Kurt says, sell for 25. Could be worth loaning out for another 4 year. Mud says, sell if we can get the 20 million pounds. Abby says, sell. Edenil says, 25 to 30 million for Willock is an absolute steal for Arsenal. We need the funds to reinvest. Sell for sure. John says, depends who we sign over the summer, which is a very good point. Yannick says, if we could push for 25 million, that would be fire. Jabaladi says, hi, Tom. I love Joe, but he does not fit the way that we play. 30 million minimum age homegrown is on his side. And Abby thinks that we should be putting in a buyback clause. But W says, we have to be very mindful about the homegrown player quota, which, interestingly, some people were tweeting me and leaving some comments about how Martinelli Dele and Saliba will eventually count as homegrown, maybe in a year or two's time, which is quite interesting as well. But we don't have them yet, so we still have to keep an eye on that side of things as well. Let's move on to our next story, which involves Ainsley MaitlandNiles, has spent the second half of the season, just like Joe Willock, but on loan at West Bromwich Albion. Now, the issues with Ainsley MaitlandNiles, or Mainsley as he's come to be known on TGT, has been very much the fact that he doesn't really know what his best position is, or no one really knows what his best position is. At Arsenal, he's been mainly used as a full-back utility player in which he's played right back, left wing back, right wing back, and very few times has actually been used in his more preferred position of central midfield. Now, I say preferred, being that his preference over someone, or rather over a position where he actually has played more of. Now, he's gone to West Brom and he's had a mixed time there. There's been some displays where he's been absolutely brilliant. I think he got a Man of the Match award in one of the games I watched, maybe even against Chelsea. But he was excellent in quite a few of those games. In other games, he's just not really done anything and has just kind of let the game pass him by. So he has had a mixed time since going there, and of course wasn't able to do a Joe Willock and help his side stay in the Premier League, and was relegated, of course, but he will return to Arsenal. And they were offered a bid in the region of £50 million initially from Wolves, which did rise to a second bid. We're not 100% sure on how much that was. Some speculate it's around 20 million. I think it's just ever slightly lower than that. But that was also rejected last summer, which now does look a little bit like maybe we should have accepted that money then, or we could have maybe even got someone in last summer that we weren't able to, and we'll have to wait until this summer to do. But the interesting bit of news that's come out today is from the word of Sam Allardyce himself, who's effectively given advice to Ainsley Maitland-Niles and turned to him and said, look, if you have the opportunity to play at Arsenal, you play where the coach wants you to play. And that's the advice he's given him. He's turned around to Ainsley and just been like, look, if you want to play for Arsenal, then you play where you're told to play. You can't just be hanging on to a certain position that you want to play in. You don't get those privileges, unfortunately, at this level of the game. It just doesn't happen. Whether or not that influences if Ainsley stays or not this season is a separate kind of factor. I personally think that he's going to go. I think we're going to see him sold. I think he's one of the people that's going to be put up for sale. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let him go in the first place. I mean, in terms of his kind of the position where he's most used to playing at Arsenal is probably right back. And considering that Arsenal currently have three, we're looking to sell Bellerin and bring one in, he doesn't really fit that at all whatsoever. Let's get your thoughts in the comment section on our boy Mainsley and see what you guys are saying about a man that has divided opinion, it's fair to say. Arsenal good at Mainsley in the chat box. Adam says, morning, Tom. Thanks for the great content. What about Areola to replace Leno? Tall, commanding through his boxes. Not sure about his ability to play it out from the back. I think it's not a bad shout, mate. I really don't. But speaking specifically on Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Hanyumi says sell. Rohan says sell. John says sell. Sorry, Mainsley. Akshat says great athlete. Could be a good fullback if he wanted to be, but he doesn't have the passing for an Arsenal central midfielder and prone to be giving the ball away. Steve says, Steve again, both Niles and Willock will be 45 million to boost our transfer budget. Boost, I think you mean. Yeah, we definitely need boosting of the transfer budget. If we were to get 45 million quid for Maitland-Niles and Joe Willock, that would be an insane amount of money when you consider what those two have kind of been at the club so far. Yannick says, again, push for 20 million. Love Ainsley, but he needs a fresh start. Isaac says, I think Mainsley has got to be sold. He's only ever was going to make it as a right back, but he just won't do it. Jasha says, Ainsley Maitland-Niles' value to Arsenal is underestimated. Definitely keeper, in my opinion. I don't think Jashar's selling anyone at this stage. Victor says, sad to see him go, but it'll be the best for both parties. Mud says, if this young could get his head straight, young guy, I think you mean, could get his head on straight, he would be a quality right back. Tulip says, gutted for him, expected much more, but definitely a sell. And Austin says, Tom, can you talk about the mentality as a parameter when signing players? Everybody's just focused on FIFA stats at the moment. Thanks. Yeah, it's something that we're very much on board with. I mean, when we did the Zakaria tactical breakdown, Oliver Zeziger, who is our Swiss correspondent, is actually an official football scout, and he does look specifically into kind of the mindset, how players train, how they act, what their demeanor is, how they speak, how they talk about the game, how they talk about clubs, how they talk about their own career. It's all things that you need to take into account, but it's things that are very hard for a person who is not on the inside and not an official scout and doesn't have to get to the contacts and the communication with those players. It's much more tricky. That doesn't get to see the training sessions. So that's why we go and focus a lot more on stats, because we don't have that kind of, usually anyway, don't have that insight into certain players. Let's move on to the next story, which is moving away from our own squad and onto that of other teams. Ryan Bertrand is a name that has been on the lips of many Arsenal fans for a few weeks now. He confirmed that he would be leaving Southampton just a matter of days ago on social media. And according to the latest reports, he is now one of the players that Arsenal are very much interested in, to the point where talks have intensified, is the word that you may have seen used over social media over the last 24 hours or so, between him and Arsenal. The club are very interested in getting this guy in. And obviously that means we'll be doing a tactical breakdown on him very, very soon. So I'm looking forward to getting that finished. But it is not the only choice. There are other players that are in the mix that Arsenal are interested in bringing in. But for definitely so, he is a player that Arsenal are interested in, and his age and his contract situation make him a very attractive kind of player to look at. And he's been playing the Premier League for a very long time. He's won trophies with Chelsea, and he's played for a long time at Southampton and helped them try and remain in the Premier League, and in some points bring themselves up to the top half of the table as well. So I think it's an absolutely fine signing to make. Use your money on the other areas of the pitch. Get him in as cover for Kieran Tierney. He can do that for a couple of years, and then we can move him on. I think you shouldn't be giving anything more than a 2-year contract, though, to be honest, maximum. But it's Arsenal, so we're going to end up giving a 5-year deal and a retirement plan. So that's what's probably going to happen. There you go. Too much smoke without fire on this one. It's got to be pretty much nailed on right now, says Mitchell. Ansgar says, I think this one would make sense. We need a homegrown left back or a under-20s left back as backup. Isaac says, I hope he's not going to be on too much money. I agree with you. We need to be sensible at how we get this deal done. Akshat says, homegrown, good player, Prem proven, able backup to Tierney, great shout as long as the wages aren't mad. Balaji says, buy only if we can get a top right back and a world-class centre midfielder. Getting a cheap backup left back makes sense only if we're going to spend the money on other areas of the pitch. I could not agree more, mate. You're spot on. Okay. Obviously the other left back that we have been linked to is Josh Deutch from Hibernian. He's a Scottish kind of youth player right now. He's 18 years of age, but he is very, very highly rated. We're aiming, hopefully today, to give you a tactical breakdown on Josh Deutch, so make sure you tune in for that. We'll obviously be doing one on Ryan Bertrand as well in the week. That is what's planned. But we have been linked to Josh Deutch, and I don't know much about the guy, so I thought it'd be very interesting to look at his statistics. We'll be comparing him to Ryan Bertrand, that is for sure. So if you want to find out Ryan Bertrand's stats anyway, make sure you tune in this afternoon to get this show. Now, the final story that we've got today regards Emerson and our good old friend Unai Emery. Now, you probably saw from the the title and from the thumbnail that this is our main story of the day. That Emerson obviously is a right back that's been linked to Arsenal, not in particular like heavily linked in the sense that Arsenal are really gunning for him, just in the sense that there is interest there, but it's not interest that has been stepped up. It's not interest that has been acted upon. Arsenal are very much keeping themselves at a few arms lengths away from Emerson in the background and sort of monitoring the situation at the moment. And that has allowed, of course, other teams that are more interested in Arsenal and have him as their primary target to step up their efforts. And that has been what has occurred with Villarreal and Unai Emery. Of course, we know all too much about the guy. Emerson strikes me as very much an Unai Emery player. Villarreal in a situation where they've obviously played Juan Foyth on loan from Spurs at right back. They've got Mario Gaspar as well, but of course he's getting on a bit now. And so Emerson does make sense for them to go for a right back, and he does strike me as a very Emery-style player. Physical, with a lot of energy, that can defend very well and do a job in the attacking final third as well, as you saw from yesterday's statistics. And we compared him to... Max Aarons. Completely forgot who I was talking about for a second. But Emerson, I think, is someone, if he goes to Villarreal, is going to do a much better job than he's currently doing at Betis. It's a bit of a step up for him, a side that's going to hopefully be competing more regularly in Europe as well, in the Europa League. Betis are trying to do that themselves, but find it very hard with their financial situation to do that. And so because of the situation with Emerson, that Barcelona can buy him for between 6 and 9 million euros and then sell him on, Betis don't really have any control of the situation. It's very difficult for them to keep hold of this guy. Villarreal are moving very quickly. It seems for this deal to happen. You're looking at a figure in the region of 22 to 24 million euros, which is an absolute steal, in my opinion, especially when you consider that Max Aarons is going to cost Arsenal about £30 million minimum. That you can get someone under 20 million quid would be a little bit scary. That Arsenal wouldn't be tempted by this. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. If it does happen and he goes to Villarreal, it's a very good signing for them. And I certainly think it'd be one that Arsenal may look upon as a bit of a missed opportunity. I hope they don't, but that's certainly seemingly the case right now. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box regarding Emerson right now. Let's just scroll up so we get the most recent comments. Here we go. Isaac says, I'm torn between Emerson and Aarons. Aarons looks more, or rather very good, although Emerson has better statistics. Could Emerson keep up those stats in the Premier League? It's a good question. And actually, they both have good stats. Aarons has very good offensive stats in comparison to Emerson. Emerson's offensive stats are still good. They're not as good as Aarons, but his defensive stats are excellent. And he really, really is that kind of that defensive figure in a right-hand side. That's why I like Mukiele from RB Leipzig. He has that side of his game to him as well. Matt G says, let's get Emerson, Bertrand, and every other left back available just so Emery can't get any. I'm not salty in any way. And says, Aarons has to be the focus. Great tactical breakdown yesterday. Thank you. If you do want to find out more about Max Aarons, then you make sure you check out our tactical breakdown on him yesterday. Emerson, good, but Aarons has a slightly higher ceiling and potentially a better sell-on value. Max Aarons says all the way. He says, Marley. Balaja says, Emerson, top talent. Stats don't do the justice to what you can bring to this Arsenal team. He is another transformative signing. Sign him, Edu. Yannick says, put being realistic aside, Emerson or Mukiele, I'd probably... if you put realistic aside, obviously Mukiele, but if you bring realism into it, it's the other way around. Piran says Max Aarons Premier League proven. DP97 says Max Aarons will be the next Lee Dixon. Wow, that is some high praise. Arsenic says I'll believe whatever Tom says about Emerson. At the end of the day, it's La Liga. Fair enough, mate. JD says rather take Premier League proven player and homegrown. You have to remember in Aarons. Then take a risk and buy. I don't necessarily think Emerson is any more of a risk than Aarons, to be honest. The risk of it with him comes from the fact he plays in a different league. The risk with Aarons is that he's going to cost more money, and he's going to be making a big jump from playing from Norwich to Arsenal and playing in the Championship to playing in the Premier League. But there's pros and cons for both sides, and we talk about all of that in yesterday's show. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. Ansgar says Bellerin is homegrown, replace him with Emerson, and we will have to sell Cedric, in my opinion. We are looking like we're going to be keeping Chambers, so Cedric is one that maybe could go, and with his lack of minutes, he might want to. JD says, think we'll buy whoever costs less, as clearly the board only cares about money. Konstantin says, we need Aarons, Arsenal, sign him. And Pradeep says that we should go and get Naby Keita from Liverpool. I mean, I did enjoy Naby Keita when he was at Salzburg and a bit when he was at Leipzig, but he hasn't been able to really get on and develop at Liverpool, mainly because of injuries and lack of form, because of not really getting enough football, because of the competition that's at Liverpool right now. It's very difficult with Milner and Henderson and Fabinho and Oxlade-Chamberlain and then him himself and now Thiago Alcantara. So it's very difficult for him to get games. Maybe someone that Arsenal could end up looking at. Who knows? Isaac says, the homegrown factor is a good point, seeing as Awar and multiple other players are coming in, right? Wink face. DP says Aarons played with Emile for the England under-21s, or am I wrong? No, you're 100% spot on. Also, imagine the link up on the right-hand side with Saka and Aarons. That's scary. Jashar says, Tom, I'm not keen on selling homegrown at the moment. The cost to replace them has a premium. Yannick says Emerson isn't Premier League proven, but he's a Premier League type player. I don't think he'd find it hard to adapt, but I could be wrong. No, I agree with you, Yannick. I think he would find that transition fairly simple, to be honest, especially in that position on the pitch too. Maka says totally different players. Emerson is more defensive and taller at Sonia. When we say more defensive, it's important to point out that doesn't mean that he doesn't go forward. What we mean to say is that his defensive qualities are greater than Max Aarons, but Max Aarons has greater offensive qualities than Emerson. But both of them do jobs in both half of the pitch. It's not like one's sitting in the defensive third and the other one's sitting in the attacking third. It's just one's better at doing one than the other. Aarons is more mobile and attacking, so will offer more in the area of the pitch. Plenty of time to grow defensively as well, which is not a bad point. Arsenic says, Aouar is a no for me. The only signing I want for midfield is Ruben Neves, and Neves Partey double pivot for the win. Agent ESR says, Matt, and there you go. And Jenny says that Neves is overrated. Wow. So there's lots of comments going on. If you do want to leave a comment, you've watched this on playback and you didn't join us live, make sure you do in the comment section below and leave your thoughts and feelings about all the people that we've covered so far today. As I've said already, there is going to be another show today a little bit later on. We'll be doing a tactical breakdown on Josh Deutch from Hibernian. There'll be a link to as a backup left back option, so make sure you tune in for that. We're doing these every single day, so make sure you do join us every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time to get your latest fix, and join us in the chat box to have your comments read out and your thoughts and opinions discussed as well. It's been an absolute pleasure, guys, to speak to you as always. Drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're new, and also I should give a shout out to the Gooners pod, because I'm going to be joining them a little bit later on this evening at 8 p.m, so in literally 12 hours time, to have a chat about podcasting in general, which should be quite fun. There's a lot of people coming on that you'll know: Judges, Sophie from the Highbury Squad, Danny from Bertrand Wonderland, Dan Potts from Same Old Arsenal. There's lots of people coming on, so make sure you tune in and join us for that. But it's a pleasure to speak to you guys. We'll see you again very, very soon, and as always, up the Arsenal.